Hello everyone, welcome to our new episode of Dekho Apna Desh. Today we are going to discuss the responsible tourism. Being responsible is the responsibility of each and every stakeholder in tourism sector. Normally, there are three segments where we focus on being responsible. So the first and foremost segment is the tourist, the person who is visiting a place. The second is the tourism stakeholders. That includes the tour operator, hoteliers, and the tour guide and transport operator and whatever you can say. And third element, that is the local residents. So these all three elements combine together and make the tourism responsible. So discuss more today. We have with us Dr. Anjuna Dheer. She is the executive director of uh, Responsible Tourism Society of India. Before starting this webinar, I must say this that the Responsible Tourism Society of India has done a remarkable job to create the awareness. To discuss more, we invite Dr. Anjana Dheer to share his views and idea and to make this webinar meaningful. Dr. Anjana.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for these network issues that I'm facing today, surprisingly. Um, Okay, if I'm audible and if I can, I did hear Sir giving my introduction, so let's carry on without wasting much time. Thank you, sir, for giving this excellent introduction to what responsible tourism is. You rightly said that responsible tourism is, a responsibility of all the three stakeholders of the tourism industry. But I would like to go a little beyond, and this is what my presentation is about. It takes into consideration two main things. The basic, consideration and assumption is that tourism is for everybody. All of us are travelers, and all of us also equally become stakeholders, whether we are from the industry or not. So the presentation is titled as "Being Responsible." So by the sheer name of it, it entails that how can all of us from the tourism industry and not from the tourism industry be responsible, because tourism is for all of us. Can I go to the next slide, please? As we all know, post-COVID world is different. A lot of things have changed. Yet one thing which hasn't changed is our wanderlust. It seems like there is so much of pent up desire to travel that suddenly everything travel seems to be exploding because it's deep rooted. Travel is there to stay. It's part of our being now. So let's explore, why do we travel? Next slide. We travel because there are such beautiful spaces like our mountains. Next slide. Our temples, our heritage. Please keep on scrolling. Our festivals, our colors, all these fascinating images which come in, which we see day in and day out on the media, they're part of our dreams, they're part of our bucket list. We travel. This is the reason why we travel. Let's stop here. So when we are subjected to all those beautiful images through media, through our, through our experiences, there is an urge to travel. But all these images, is this the reality that's our reality? Yes, that's our reality. That's the reason this urge to travel is there. But there is another side of reality. Let's go to the next side, next screen. All of us know what this is. Next screen, please. The same Taj Mahal visible from the other side and backyard of Taj Mahal is what you saw on the last screen. Similarly, we also are subjected to landslides. We also are subjected to forest fires. We also are subjected to other extreme climate events. So these are also part of our realities. Look at this beautiful destination, hilly destination, which has these long lines of cars, vying for space with each other. Now, when we go on a holiday with such a situation, do you think we're enjoying our holiday? Okay, one side of the story is the traveler himself. What about the other side of the story? There would be some people who are residing in these places, the residents of the places. So, what would this reality translate to them? Next slide, please. When this becomes their everyday life, this is what they come up with. We don't want tourists in our buildings. This is not your beach resort. And it can even be more blatant than that. It says, tourists, go back. We don't want you. So if this is the messaging that finally ends up after so much of effort, one side of the business transaction, tourist goes to a place and there's a host community. If the host community is not happy, their business transaction doesn't happen. So this is something which we do not want happening. So the last few slides that I showed, is what is not responsible. It is something which doesn't allow my business of tourism, go long way. So what I'm saying is, if these are the messages that we are throwing, this is the imagery that we are looking at, then my business is not sustainable. Next slide, please. So what do I mean by sustainable tourism? Sustainable tourism is that tourism, that business, which takes into account today's requirements, so that tomorrow's requirements are also met socially, economically, environmentally. And the impacts are minimized both for the visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host community. Basically, what we are saying is every business, every step we've taken towards tourism, has to continue in such a manner that it leaves only positive imprints and doesn't leave negative. It does. There's no way that we go backwards and it ends up stopping the step. So, sustainability has four elements. We need to look at economic sustainability. We need to look at socio-cultural sustainability. We need to look at the environmental sustainability. And it cannot be a one-off situation. It has to be, constant. So that's the fourth pillar. Let's go to the next slide, please. At the beginning of the presentation, I also said that, I while Sir said that responsibility is only for the tourism stakeholders, I did take a minute to share that since all of us are tourists, so it becomes our collective responsibility. Because great tourist destinations are also great places to stay. Whatever place I travel to as a tourist, that's the place which is somebody else's home. So, when we are saying responsibility, what we are saying is it's not just our responsibility as a tourist, it's also our responsibility as a visitor to somebody else's home. So, next slide, please. So, today's presentation is referring to us as tourism professionals, us as tourism industry, us as travelers of ourselves, us as tourism consumers. And why is it so important? Because if you look at sustainable development goals of the world, tourism happens, a good, functional, responsible tourism is a solution to all the 17 SDGs. Even if we want to say that tourism is only, directly catering to decent work and responsible consumption and production and life below water. But if you look deeply, tourism has the potential to contribute to each and every one of these SDGs. So definitely an industry, definitely an activity which needs to be looked upon in a lot more seriousness than it is being looked upon right now. Next slide, please. What is being responsible? Responsibility is to do with sustainability, SDGs, responsibility. But going deeper into it, there's some key points that I've shortlisted, which is what my presentation is going to be around. Let's look at building back better, building better forward. It's finally the time of green, blue, digital, and virtual economies. Let's focus on the destinations. Let's try and change what and how we travel. Maybe we should focus on slow travel. And of course, what does a responsible travel look like? And at the end of it, all of us are in it together. Next slide. Tourism, which capitalizes on what is existing. So let me take some case studies where people have done it right. There are a lot of good examples in our industry. So when I show you the bad examples, when I show you the kachara, then it's also my responsibility to show you some good practices. So let's look at the first practice which is existing in our country. This place is called Kalari Kovilukam. It's in Kerala, and the specific monument or the place I'm referring to is the Palace for Ayurveda. This used to be the king's palace. Please, let's go to the next slide. Once the royalty became obsolete, the queen was wondering what to do with this palace. She did not want to convert into a regular hotel. So, giving it much thought and after much deliberation with some sustainability oriented people, they came up with an excellent product. Next slide, please. It became the Palace of Ayurveda. And how? Not only the palace culture, not only the palace practices, not only everything that was interiors, the beautiful interiors of the palace was conserved through this method. It also became a place where Ayurveda got its maximum patronage. Next slide, please. In the best possible form that we can look at experiencing. Look at the interiors. And if this is a place which is going to cater to the wellness of human mind, look at the interiors. Don't they simply ensure that one can never be unwell in these surroundings? Next slide, please. So here, we not only looked after the heritage of our country, this palace had a rule of not allowing shoes inside. That rule is still followed. It's not just footwear, everything to do with leather, your wallets, your phones, etc., is left outside. And this rule is followed very consciously and very happily by the visitors who come here. Next slide, please. So when I'm using this example to, think and convey that we have a lot of heritage, old, beautiful, unmatched, classic heritage. So what is it that is responsibility of us, the people who have this heritage as our dharohar? We need to build back better so that this heritage amalgamates into our current lifestyle, you know, and we are able to do justice to what this precious heritage is doing, is all about. Next slide, please. The practice of Ayurveda, the original authentic jadi booties, the medicines, the oils, all of it is utilized here. This serves two purposes. It conserves and preserves the culture of the place. It gets the customers and the patrons the best of what Ayurveda has to provide. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. A very popular place. And because we have such places, because somebody, a responsible operator, thought of converting this, so there's we the customers are able to utilize what was almost getting extinct. Next slide, please. Next. This whole case study is about how do you build back better. How do you get your heritage into your current life? So this is what our heritage was. This is a yoga class which is going in the same palace. Next slide, please. This is the kitchen, the original authentic Maharaja kitchen. Only vegetarian food is cooked as per the rule of this palace, because this palace is supposed to be also the house of the gods. So only authentic, good, and still the traditional recipes are used. So again, another way of preserving our culture. Next slide, please. Not just vegetables, not just recipes, not just architecture. Even the original utensils are being used now. So in the process, conserving those, preserving those. Otherwise, it would have, only time would have been told us what would have happened to all these. So tourism helped us to keep our heritage alive. Next one. So this was example of how do you build back better. Another example. If you do not have heritage, how do you build better forward? How do you create new things in such a manner that you are responsible and the final product is responsible? So here I have an example of Delhi, NCR Delhi. The place is a golf resort based property. It's a 300-acre property in NCR Delhi. It's called Karma Lakelands. So this next slide, please. Can you imagine such greenery existing in the heart of NCR? So Karma Lakeland Golf Resort Club and Villas. Next slide, please. And what did they do right? Delhi has a problem of waste. We also have, golf resort. By being a golf resort, it guzzles a lot of groundwater, and then a lot of chemicals are put in. So the developers of this place, they took a conscious decision of having a not just a normal STP, but a big STP, so that all the water that was going into the ground was taken care of. In the process, they set up a STP of capacity 500,000 liters of sewage every day. They not only looked at treating their sewage, they also looked at treating the sewage of neighboring buildings and villages. So in effect, actually helping the whole area. Next slide, please. Then there are rules to cater to noise pollution. They have a policy. It's a gated community, so they have a policy: no horn policy and no engine idling. They say our guards respond to sight, not sound. So when you enter karma, it's an island of peace. Not only this, they also have another rule. They say that it's up to us to do right things. So another rule is no smoking. The whole area is a no smoking zone. And imagine a golf course nowhere around, except this place is a golf course, a smoke free zone. Next slide, please. These 300 acres, a little less than 300 acres land, is full of trees. So it's the only non smoking golf course in the world. Next slide, please. What else do they do? They collect the e waste. And then, since there is no definite solution to the plastic menace, which is anyway plaguing all of us, so they got into creating eco bricks. And who creates those eco bricks? They got the community children involved, and every few months, when there's a considerable collection of plastic bottles and single-use plastic polythene, all the children sit together, and they have a whole activity which is created by those children, where eco bricks are created of these plastic bottles and single-use plastic wrappers. And what do they do with these eco bricks? They use them in creating fun places, which can be small play places for the children. Next slide, please. To find an area which is an oasis of trees in NCR Delhi itself is, it's a very, very remote possibility. And Karma has a theory. They say, why throw anything which can be grown? So technically, not only they do not throw any of their own seeds, any fruit that comes into Karma, this place doesn't get thrown. All the seeds are planted. And you can also take your plants. You can also take, they invite you to take your seeds, your plants, and they have enough space. They say, we'll plant everything for you. So they have a plantation drive on 365 days a year. So wonderful initiative. Next slide, please. Another initiative where they are collecting electronic waste. Next, please. A very interesting usage of deployment of solar energy panels. So solar energy, they of course use, they have a huge land mass, so they of course use the solar panels. But something which I've seen only at this place and nowhere else, I'm sure others have also, others also would be doing this. But the way they've placed their solar panels, if you look at the picture on the left hand side, there's a lot of space beneath the solar panel. And what do they use the space for? They use the space for parking cars. So that's a parking lot. So every car, it's a public place. So every car which goes to the Karma Lakelands gets a very nicely shady environment to be parked in. And then on top of it, the parking lot roof is actually the solar panels. So two in one, excellent initiative. Next slide, please. Eco urinal blocks. Their urinal blocks do not use water at all. So this is a proper utilization of technology, chemistry, and then environment friendliness. Delhi being fine. So incidentally, they also look at making the whole property water positive. Next slide, please. Understanding that the role of bees, in biodiversity. It is said that if there are no bees, the whole planet and all the whole planet will be devoid of life within 2 to 3 years. So if this is the importance of bees in our environment, then it's very important that bees are kept, bees are taken care of. So karma has a complete place dedicated to, having keeping bees, and they bee farm. Next slide, please. Two examples. How can we be more responsible as an industry? Being responsible is, let's look at the newer technology. Can we look at the blue, green, and digital economy? What do I mean by green, blue, and green? Next slide, please. From NCR Delhi, let's move to the seas. So here is a traditional boat. We're having a good time in the seas. Next slide, please. Traditional boat with this traditional catch. Now, these people would have had no hope of ever coming on a common platform with a fisherman. Sorry, with a tourist. There was no common interface, but you'll be surprised to know this village on the east coast of India, with its traditional lifestyle, with fishermen who are not educated beyond class 8, is a popular place amongst tourists from Denmark. So, how did the tourists from Denmark reach this place? How did they even get to know of it? Of course, the digital technology. Somebody made, one of the local boys made a YouTube video of what his village is, and that YouTube video caught fire. And then, combination of blue of the seas, the waters, and the digital technology, gave an alternative livelihood to these people, these fishermen. Next slide, please. And what do the tourists experience? The tourists experience exactly what has been traditionally been done by these village men. So whether it's boating, whether it's collecting local fruit, whether it's going out in the open seas, it's an experience no tourist would want to leave. Next slide, please. Similar kind of similar kind of platform was also utilized by these women, who belong to Maharashtra and South and Kerala and Tamil Nadu, who are utilizing agro-tourism. They are farmers, but they're utilizing digital platforms to attract tourists, local tourists, school children, who want to experience what farming is. And agro-tourism is actually being promoted by the digital technology. It's a combination of green, blue, digital. And digital is not just this. Digital has, in COVID times, digital also proved to us how important it is. When we were encountered in the houses, when we could not leave our houses, national parks like Tadoba took out such interesting initiative. They most of I'm sure most of you are aware of. They took out virtual safaris, which people like me with wanderlust and who couldn't move out, they love to go on those virtual safaris. So today, tourism is not just restricted to, the traditional tourism of cultural tourism, etc., etc. There are ways, as many ways possible as it is, as far as your thought can take you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The new tourist destinations emerging, which could have never imagined of, coming on the same platform as a tourist. Next slide, please. So, what is one saying? One is saying that one needs to be involving everything. One needs to utilize the current technology, the current knowledge, and take it to the ancient wisdom that we have. So, here is a product, Vanvasa, where one of the tourist companies took up the concept and then marketed in such a manner that it is relevant to the modern customer. And how is it relevant to the modern customer? They said Vanvas was a time that people used to go towards the end of life to contemplate on, after having finished their everyday affairs of their life. So contemplate on what lies beyond. So here what they've interpreted is as, in this fast world of today, Let's not look at end of life. Let's look at rebuilding ourselves, rejuvenating ourselves, rewilding ourselves. So why not? And this concept is again sold on the digital platform. So wonderful initiative of making newer products, offering it to more number of customers. So responsibility in interpreting our ancient heritage. Next slide, please. Being responsible. Let's focus on the destinations. We've traditionally been going to our destinations and going there en masse, spoiling them in the process, creating those big traffic jams. Can we relook at our destinations? Can we try and benefit what our tourism products are? Next slide, please. Can we look at Sudur, Far Eastern, Northeastern? Look at these living root bridges in Meghalaya. We all have heard of them. Can we look at them as a destination? Next slide, please. When we explore our natural heritage, when we go to places which are unknown, which do not get frequented by customers, when we also desire to leave the places better than what they were, when we also take care that we do not litter those beautiful places, when we also ensure that we do not take a simple step as plucking those orchids, that's what is responsible tourism. Next one, please. These pristine waterfalls, I've seen these waterfalls littered with plastic bottles because some of us have visited these places and thrown our water bottles there. So that's not responsibility. Look at this beautiful Khasi Hut at Sulphur Baths in Jakrim, Meghalaya. Can we go to these places so that we are able to appreciate them, the culture from which these places have originated? So that our destinations, why I'm showing this is, let's go beyond what is already popular. Let's go beyond and let's try and explore more, so that tourism spreads, the benefit of tourism spreads to more number of people. In the effort, let's appreciate and preserve what's available to us. Next one, please. So hut architecture has been perfected by our tribes in Nagaland, Arunachal, and Meghalaya. Unfortunately, it's disappearing very fast. When I visited Tripura last month, I was aghast to see that most of the buildings, at least in the city, Agartala, were concrete buildings. So if tourists do not go and if there's no appreciation to the traditional architecture, it will disappear very fast. So can we be responsible to go to these places, appreciate what's available, and then lead to the conservation of what anyway has come up after ages. Next slide, please. So we're looking at, can we look at our destinations again? Can we look at conserving and preserving our destinations? Next one, please. Can we look at our built heritage? Can we look at our architectural heritage? Look at this beautifully designed Morong Naga house. Next slide, please. Fast disappearing. Tourism has traditionally been India. Go places, see monuments. Go places, visit temples. That's all. Can we try and involve ourselves more into the places that we go to? So, can we try and make our trips more experiential? Is what one is referring to. Let's go to the next slide, please. Today's customer, today's tourist, is slightly more sensitive to what does he or she do. Especially after COVID, the concept of slow travel has come into being. So this is what one is saying. When one goes to, instead of striking off the bucket list that I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, let's try and pause and enjoy the places that we are in. So whatever place we have gone to, can we look and experience every bit of it? So here it's a yoga class, it's a yoga meditation class. Next one. Here it's a classical music session. Even if you're not able to learn it or play it, you can at least listen to it and have a euphoric experience. Next one, please. Another yoga class. This time it's a hut yoga class. Next one, please. Meditation. This is what the newer age tourists are doing and are preferring. This is what the industry has to understand. They have to identify what is available with us, learn to package it better, and offer to the customer. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our sculpture, our traditions, our artifact. Is it something that would be interesting to tourists? Our pottery. Yes. A tourist wants to do. Next slide, please. Being responsible is all about authentic experiences. And authentic experiences come from authentic understanding. Next slide, please. Um, all right. So there is some mixing of this slides. So authentic experience is what we looked at before this. Now the next one is next part of this presentation is uh, how does a traveler behave when he or she is traveling to a newer destination. So what a traveler needs to do is become a responsible traveler. So who is a responsible traveler? I am associated with with an organization called Responsible Tourism Society of India. Next slide, please. And Responsible Tourism Society of India has taken out a set of guidelines, which is what makes a traveler a responsible traveler. So basically, simple steps which say be environmental conscious. If you are traveling to a destination, you have to be careful about are you leaving any waste? Are you leaving any medical environmental footprint? Can you try and take out those steps so that the your carbon footprint is minimal? Can you try and do away with plastics? Can you try and patronize the destination in such a manner that you experience it fully at the destination? Can you give respect to the people that you're meeting? Can you get off your high handed horse and look at and genuinely understanding what your customer, what your destination has to offer you? Next one, please. But even before you reach a destination, there are things that you should be doing with respect to you're going on a holiday. So before you leave for your holiday, are you responsible enough to plan it out in such a manner that you think through the holiday, you think through what is who are the people that you're taking help of, which is the place that you're staying. If possible, can you try and look at those travelers, those places who have consciously taken a decision of going green and not leaving a negative imprint? Instead of just being price sensitive, can we do a little bit of homework and then look at a property which does right things? And also, when you're leaving for your home, do you also take care of little things which will make your holiday a better holiday? For example, switching off all your electricity, switching off your gas connection, being careful about locking everything. So all constitute responsible travelers' roles. And when you are at a destination, can you respect local culture, communities? Can you try and do something which will contribute to that community's well-being? Next slide, please. Very important. Adhere to the laws of land when outdoors, not just outdoors. Usually, what happens is when we travel, we are on a holiday. So we think that the whole world is on a holiday. And we acquire some supernatural powers of going and breaking out all the laws. So when in a different destination, when in a tourist destination, let's try and behave a little less, less boisterous. Some of us think that we become Maharajas of the place that we travel to and we need to be served. So let's try and get off that mentality. And of course, when you're traveling outdoors, can we try and respect the location, the locale that we are going to, the environment that we are going to? Maybe it's more sensible not to have a bonfire in forest. Maybe it's better to take a more informed decision of whether you are physically fit to go on a certain trek. Maybe it makes more sense for you to wear proper clothes when venturing into some areas. So can you adhere to laws of land when traveling? Next slide, please. As a responsible traveler, RTSOI has a responsible traveler guidelines which is freely available for all of us to download, execute it. What can set your travel apart? If we go a little step ahead and bond with the communities of the places that we are traveling to, that can help your travel make not only memorable your travel for yourself, but also for the communities and the people that you impacted and influenced. Can we contribute to local communities and make it an enriching experience for yourself as well as the community that you're entering? Next slide, please. So when RTSY came up with responsible traveler guidelines, they were adopted by the industry. So this last few slides were, from it's a case study from Sita. So as Gandhiji said, be the change you want to see in the world. Go green and stay green. Next slide, please. Go local, because all of us are in it together. Those times have gone when we used to go to a place and ask for things which were in vogue back home. If you're wanting those things which are available at your place, at your home, why go traveling in the first place? So when we go to Sikkim, let's not ask for malai kofta. When we go to Benares, let's not try and wear shorts. When we go to Kerala, let's try and experiment with their fish. But when we go to Agra, let's not try and ask for prawns. Let's try and go local, because all of us, and when I say all of us, it's the host of that particular destination. And the host can be a city host from Agra, or it can be a local community which is in Nagaland, which is a resident community of Nagaland or Arunachal Pradesh. Let's try and enjoy them. Let's try and learn with them, from them, and make an impact with them. So let's go local, because all of us are in together. It also translates into let's try and buy from them. If we are going on a holiday, what's the need to carry heavy packages which constitute everything? पूरा घर ले जाते हैं हम अपने travel पर. वहाँ दुकान नहीं है. Can we try and buy locally? So let's next slide, please. Being responsible. It says tourism is no longer about you, it's about all of us. When you travel to different places, the tourism has a multiplier effect. So your travel's multiplier effect needs to go into the last child who's there into the your host city or the host destination. Let's all try and be responsible. Next slide, please. This is the cause that Responsible Tourism Society of India stands for. We are a non-profit society which stands for making tourism sustainable business. So it's a membership-based organization. It's open for everybody, the tourism industry as well as individual travelers. So we expect and we invite everybody to join us so that sustainability of tourism becomes a perennial, perpetual element for all of us. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Anjuna. So the the presentation was excellent. So we could learn very much about being responsible and how the tourism sector can become responsible to grow and be feasible for the society and the economy. So here I would like to add that one of the biggest factor that is important is being responsible by each and every person. So the first responsibility goes to the tourist, and the tourist, how the tourist can become responsible. The first thing is littering. The littering is the biggest problem that we are facing, and certainly that can be taken off, that can be resolved by the efforts of all the stakeholders. So first of all, the tourist need to be responsible that he will try not to litter and put the right thing at the right place. That is the
Absolutely.
best solution a tourist can do for becoming responsible. And
Absolutely.
then further moving, all the stakeholders like hotels, like tour operator and everybody must become responsible so that the environment, the society and the economy, all the three factors are growing together with harmony.
Absolutely.
So if we are not becoming responsible, then the situation of becomes the local traveler, this local population sometimes become aggressive. That the case that has happened in Europe and some part of you can say uh, other countries also. The situation has come that where the local population is telling the tourists are not welcome. So that situation should not happen. Post COVID, we have to be more responsible. The responsibility lies more on us, and certainly we must take it forward and become a responsible tourist. The third thing I would like to mention is use of technology. Like Dr. Anjuna mentioned, the use of green energy, solar energy, wind power. These are all the things that is helping us to get the environment clean and maintain it. I will give the example of Kochi airport that is totally dependent on solar energy. So it is totally pollution free, and that is way we can move forward. And currently India is moving in this direction, and lot of efforts are being made in making the green energy and green tourism. Recently the Prime Minister also said that we must use the local products, we must buy the local souvenir and local things. We should expend our 5% of our expenditure during our visits on the local products. So this also makes the tourism sustainable. Until unless the local population gets the benefit of the tourism, tourism would not be sustainable. So to becoming responsible and to make the tourism sustainable, we must act responsibly. And I am thankful to Dr. Anjuna who given very insightful lecture and the presentation, and we could learn a lot. And to all the other participants and the viewers, so we will be bringing further more such things, new episodes of Unseen India, or you can say Less Traveled India, and the new aspects of tourism to discuss. Thank you, Dr. Anjuna.
Thank you, Mr. Suman. Thank you very much.
So if there is no question, we can conclude. Thank you,
Definitely.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.